Good morning. Welcome to the Silver X presentation. And since we're keeping you from lunch that's upcoming, we will take less than that 20 minutes. So if you look at today's environment, a lot of companies are undervalued. So what does that mean in terms of being undervalued? Does it mean it's not priced the way that you would pay for it in a bull market? What are some of the factors that contribute to being undervalued? So we're going to talk a little bit about Silver X and why we think it's undervalued.
Green.
I did.
Big one.
I did.
That one. Yep.
Of course, we have the disclaimer, and so you would have to assess how we define Silver X and why it's undervalued. So three things. Silver X is interesting because it has excellent organic growth. It's also in a very prolific, underdeveloped silver area with a very good silver belt that has been producing over 200 million ounces of silver in the last little while, over a 30-kilometer radius around Silver X. With such, there is an opportunity for M&A growth down the road. Silver X has also done really well in terms of drilling. We will have with here a geologist that can explain a little bit better of how that is done. And basically, the plan last year was to do 25,000 meters. But having only done a little bit more than half of that, we were able to double the resources from 7 million tons to 14.9 million tons.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, we're cost-effectively adding resources by drilling. A lot of the drilling has been happening underground, which can lower those costs. As Wendy said, we've doubled the resource, and we've tripled the metal content as well, from 80 million ounces silver equivalent to 211 million ounces silver equivalent. Furthermore, we have another mining operation coming online in the coming months, Plata. There's been some drilling and working towards production in 2024.
So about 30,000 meters of historical drillings that we have inherited that's yet to be assayed, but the drill cores are being stored. And with the drill core this, we can again add resources very cost effectively as we only need to twin a very small percentage of the holes in order to have the resource. So moving forward, we're going to be doing infill drillings to basically fill it up and get it to the M&I category. So if you look at the mining life cycle, and this is true with the Malartic asset at Osisko, with Detour Gold, with Victoria Gold in the last little while, what you see is that in the stage that's just before commercial production, it is when it tends to be most undervalued and depressed. So similarly, Silver X is in the same situation. It's just before commercial production. Well, gunning, in the last 8 months, production have been increasing, and the amount of ore being processed have been increasing. In fact, month on month, we have gone up to 57, 58% increases, and averaging in the 165,000 ounces to 195,000 ounces in the last few months. So what we are tracking right now, pre-commercial production, has resulted in lower cost per ton mine as we ramp up production. And so more is to come, and maybe Nick can talk a little bit about the PEA upcoming.
Yeah, a big part of moving towards commercial production is releasing our PEA target for the Q4 of this year, so in the next coming months. As we've expanded the production, we've figured out more efficiencies, lowering the cost per ton mined, and we look forward to taking that next step towards commercial production and have a chance for a re-rating.
So I think if you see this number here, 129% increase Q3 versus Q2. It's not 29% increase, but 129% increase. So that's the amount of ramp up that we're doing right now. So when we talk about undervalue, this is a report by Echelon. They looked at the NAV and your net asset calculation based on your future cash flow. So if you look at where we are trading our price versus the competition, we're one of the highest discounted among various silver producers. Now this number is a little bit, we don't have the latest Echelon report. This is before the financing when we were at 30 million. So usually during financing, your price goes down. So Silver X went the other direction. So as we are financing, the price keeps creeping. So now we just completed a round of financing, and we'll have a little bit more details in that. We have two upsides, went from 2 million, 2.5 to 3 million. And we went from, before the financing started at 20 cents, and now we're in the 36 cents. So we went from 30 million to about 50 million as of today.
Sure. We're in a very prolific silver district within Peru, between carbonate host deposits and a Miocene volcanic belt, which has produced a huge amount of silver historically from colonial times to present. We're in close to other major producers that have produced more than 300 million ounces, and there's tons of in-district potential for consolidation. We're in a place that's there. It's a lot of synergies for the right group who can put the district together as a single operator, and as a group who's achieved cash flow positive operations in the last coming months. We believe we're well primed to be that consolidator.
And Silver X is about 240 kilometers from Lima, and it's right smack in the middle of the silver belt. So that's interesting. So of the assets that we have 3 mining units. So most of the processing and mining is coming from Tangana, and there's multiple veins. So in terms of, we have 240 outcrop veins on a strike basis, 500 kilometers worth of it. So most of it is Tangana, and there's a PERU vein that has just began production as well. And then we have another asset called Red Silver. So these are spin-outs from Bonaventura. So Red Silver used to be called Maria Luz. And then the last one is Plata. Plata is the one that Nick talked about earlier that's coming on stream. The drilling starting in 2023, coming on stream in 2024, that will add 400 tons per day to the operation.
There's a lot of infrastructure in the area as well. There's good road access to the project, there's water, and then there's power. So it's easy to expand those operations. And we're working through that EIA to expand to 20 to 25, 250,000 tons per day, or 2,500, sorry.
Yeah, so we are at, our plant has been permitted for 700 tons per day. We're not there yet, still ramping up to get there. But once we get there, we're going to increase that permit, first with the EIS, and then and also with the PEA. We're looking at how we can optimize this and getting to the 2,200 tons. At the 2,200 tons, 2,500 tons per day operation, it would be doing free cash flow around the 35 million range. And as you can see, even though Silver X is right smack in the middle of the silver belt, as it is, we really own over 20,000 hectares of property. So just before that, we even get into the whole conversation of consolidation and M&A, we really have a lot of potential within our own grounds to basically explore and to ramp up production. And one of the things that's interesting is that all these conversations about Peru, the risk, Castillo being in power, when you are in operation, you don't need to get an exploration permit. You can explore anywhere in your own land without additional permitting requirements, which makes it a nice thing to have. And so a lot of the exploration projects have been a different kind of valuation, and Peru as a whole is depressed because of, the political environment. But if you look at that, the permitting risk you expect on other projects is not here. You don't have that permitting risk of exploration risk that Castillo may not give you the rights to. Now, since it was private since 2017, in 2021 it became public, awareness has been really low. So we're now tracking much improved awareness in the last 6 months. We started doing a lot of work in terms of marketing, being out in conferences. I think the first time the management team was out in conferences was March this year. It's the first time they were on the road at the BMO conference. We crashed that party. Now you can see in the last few years, these are the key milestones that have been achieved, and it's quite a lot. So it's difficult to read, because there was a lot of things that got done. So we're just going to highlight a few points for you, and there is a handout at the desk by the tea and coffee area.
Yeah, we've completed more than 4,000 meters of mine development between Tangana and San Antonio operations. Almost 8,500 meters of resource expansion drilling and upgrade exploration drilling between the various operations. We've increased processing capacity by 20% from 600 to 720 tons per day. As I said off the top, we've tripled the metal content from 80 to more than 210 million ounces silver equivalent. We've also doubled the resource from 7 to more than 14 million tons at 162 grams per ton silver. Looking forward to 2022, the end of it, 57% increase in processed silver equivalent grade from August. And we've installed a new gold concentrator to help with the gold we're seeing around some of the geological structures in Tangana.
So we talked about the mining life cycle where we are in the stage just before commercial production where we are very undervalued. So the other aspect that will cause for reevaluation are these additional catalysts that are upcoming. So one is PEA. So the draft will be ready end of the year, and we'll probably publish this the beginning of the new year, the PEA information that will look at optimizing the plan and getting to that 2,200 tons per day. What's the plan, how we're gonna do it. Plata mining unit is the one that is adding 400 tons per day to the operation. And that will commence production in 2024, driving towards from a 2.4 million ounce per year producer to that 5 million ounce in a 3-year time frame.
We've continued production increases over the last 3 months. We're currently cash flow positive. Rolling 3-month average in September, Q3 versus Q2, it's 129% increase in silver equivalent ounces at very respectable recoveries, 87% silver, 80% gold, 74% zinc, and 89% lead. We're continuing underground exploration and development at the Tangana vein and the parallel Cauca vein as well, which is, we recently completed a cross-cut between the two to increase the mining phases.
What we're finding is that we're also seeing more and more gold showing up, which is interesting. And at one point, we have one at 800 grams per ton.
Yeah.
So that was a crazy one. So no promises of what that would be because we don't know. But that really helped in terms of gold credits onto the price and the cost of mining. As you can see, when we ramped up production on tons per day mine, our cost is reducing as we move forward. So this is the resource technical update in June, where we basically doubled the resources from 7 million tons to 14.9 million tons. And the global resource we have is at 200 million ounces right now. What we need to do moving forward is to get that into the M&I category as we move towards the PEA. So summary, what's interesting about AGX? Normally when I do this, I quiz the audience and throw out chocolates, but today, we'll just run through this quickly. So we are ramping up in production. As you can see, when you're before commercial production, you're depressed in pricing. We have a PEA coming that will cause a re-rating, and we also submit the ESIA application to expand processing. So when people talk about community issues and all that in parts of Peru, this particular area where Silver X is located never in history had an issue with the community. So the community is actually on site with mining. In fact, when I was there in July, they said, don't explore, can you just hurry up and mine more? So I'm like, well, you actually have to explore so that you can then mine more because there was a development process to get to the mining, to get to the milling. But that's how they were pushing. Like the leaders were saying, please mine more. Yeah. Organic growth?
Yeah, and 65% of our workforce comes from that local community. Community engagement has been a big part of our corporate goals right from the beginning, to work with the community and support their own development as we grow together. We're in a prospective district with high potential for organic growth. As we have a mining license, our exploration and permitting risks are low. We have a lot of, through the Buenaventura workings through the 70s, there's a lot of underground development that can lead to lower cost drilling from underground adits. And we've tripled the content with half our drilling program, so there's a considerable potential to keep making those increases as we complete the program.
And also, we're looking for marriage partners in silver as a lead, but it doesn't have to be, just as we were discussing earlier, there's not a lot of just pure silver play. So anybody that knows of any M&A potentials, we are very open to those conversations. And we're having meetings with funds that would do acquisition co-funding as well. So yeah, we're looking for marriage partners. We talked about this already, so it's quite entrenched in the community. It actually, 65% of workforce comes from the community, and out of that is the second generation of jobs created. So when we hire the trucking company hires more people to work in the trucking company. So there's a second layer of magnification of the economics because Silver X is in production in the community.
Yeah, wrap it up, I think I got 4 minutes.
A quick overlay of the leadership team. So Jose, the CEO, comes from a big company environment and does not like the sort of bureaucracy inherent in it, and has moved on to a much more entrepreneurial company. And Ronald, the CFO, is the one that comes from the bigger company that's helping putting system and processes in place to kind of, complement the strengths of the existing team. And your dad.
Yeah, he's sold a few companies over the last decade, over $2 billion of shareholder value, and like the space and like the project, and is excited to see this move forward.
Yeah, it's great to have Paul because he has a very successful track record of multiple billion-dollar exits. Share structure where insider ownership is very strong. Insider and the funds owned over 30% of the company, and we have U.S. Global, Sprott, Baker Steel. Baker Steel actually had a debt that converted at 30 cents, and we just did our raise at 22 cents, and that was an oversubscribed that I mentioned earlier. It went from 2 million. We have to upsize it to 2.5, and then upsize it again to 3. And then we had another 500,000 tranche coming in, but we couldn't upsize because the price of the stock is creeping up rapidly as we're doing this. I think a lot of people recognize the undervalue of this story and where it's trading relative to its peers based on the fact that it's pretty new and a lot of people haven't even heard of it until this last few months. And we see that we track in terms of the traction of people clicking into our page view, and it really just started showing up between May to now. September operation updates, it's got amazing results as well. So we're processing more and more as we go, and the grades and recovery are good, predominantly with the gold discovery that is showing up in the veins.